Why did the courtroom go silent when Shyne walked in, reportedly there to address his past legal situation tied to Diddy? I'm talking dead silence. Like someone had just dropped a bombshell. The kind of silence that makes your skin crawl because you know something massive is about to happen, but you have absolutely no idea what. Nobody saw it coming. Not the press vultures circling outside. Not Diddy's army of lawyers in their $1,000 suits. Not even Sean Combs himself, sitting there in his designer everything, probably thinking he had this whole thing locked down. But what many speculated Shyne would reveal, let me tell you, it flipped the entire narrative on its head in ways nobody could have predicted. Drop a comment if you think you know where this is going, because I guarantee you don't. The truth that emerged? It wasn't a confession. It was the weight of a past event, a life profoundly changed by a night that connected him to Diddy. A past event that named Sean Diddy Combs as present at the 1999 Club New York shooting that changed everything. The shooting that sent a young rapper to prison while another walked away with his empire intact. This narrative was never supposed to see the light of day. Shyne had buried it so deep, even he thought it would die with him. But here's the thing about the truth, it has a way of surfacing when you least expect it. And Shyne? He wasn't walking into that courtroom as a defendant. He wasn't there to beg for forgiveness or plead for mercy. He was there to finally speak on his past, publicly, regarding Diddy and the incident. Tell me in the comments, would you have kept that story buried, or would you have used it? Because what happened next will blow your mind. Let me take you back to December 27, 1999. Club New York. The night that changed hip-hop forever. I was just a kid when this happened, but I remember the headlines. The chaos. The gunfire that erupted in one of Manhattan's hottest nightclubs. 3 people shot. Panic everywhere. And when the smoke cleared, there was Diddy, untouchable as always, and there was Shyne, barely 21 years old, about to become the central figure in a legal battle that would define the rest of his life. Moses Michael Levi Barrow. That's Shyne's real name. A young rapper from Belize who had just signed to Bad Boy Records, probably thinking he'd hit the lottery. He was Diddy's protege, his rising star, his next big thing. But that night at Club New York, everything went wrong. Shots were fired. People were hurt. And when the NYPD came looking for answers, guess who they found holding the bag? Not Diddy. Never Diddy. Shyne was convicted of assault and reckless endangerment. 10 years in prison. 10 years of his life, gone. Meanwhile, Diddy walked free, his empire growing bigger, his bank account fatter, his conscience apparently lighter. But here's what nobody talks about: what happened to Shyne in prison. While Diddy was making millions and living his best life, Shyne was transforming. He converted to Orthodox Judaism. He studied law. He read everything he could get his hands on. And slowly, methodically, he began to understand exactly how he'd been affected by the events of that night. Are you starting to see the picture? Drop a comment if you think Shyne was planning his next chapter from day one. The man who emerged from prison in 2009 wasn't the same naive kid who went in. He was Moses Barrow, a practicing Jew who had found his faith behind bars. He moved to Belize, got into politics, became a leader in his community. To the world, it looked like he'd moved on. Like he'd forgiven and forgotten. But that memory, that experience he had in his cell, it was always there, waiting. And Diddy? He probably thought he was safe. Thought that after all these years, after all the success, after all the money and power and influence, the past would stay buried. He was wrong. Comment below, do you think Shyne planned this moment for over 20 years? Fast forward to 2024. Sean Combs isn't just dealing with old music industry drama anymore. The federal government has him in their crosshairs. We're talking about serious charges. Racketeering. Sex trafficking. Conspiracy. The kind of charges that don't just end careers, they end lives as you know them. I've been following this case since day one, and let me tell you, the feds don't mess around when they decide to take down someone like Diddy. They needed someone who could shed light on Diddy's past associations. Someone who knew how Diddy operated. Someone who understood his methods, his network, his secrets. Someone who had already paid the ultimate price for Diddy's presence at those past events. That's when the whispers started. Sources close to the investigation were saying prosecutors were building a case. They had evidence, sure, but they needed context. Someone credible. Someone with nothing left to lose. And then the speculation about Shyne's involvement came. Not to Diddy's lawyers. Not to his publicists or his handlers or his crisis management team. The focus shifted to Moses Barrow. In Belize. After 25 years of relative silence on the matter. The idea was simple: Shyne could potentially provide details that might be relevant to the ongoing investigation. Think about that for a second. After serving 10 years for someone else's crime, after having his career destroyed, after losing the best years of his life, Shyne was being offered something Diddy thought he'd never have to worry about. A voice. Drop a comment, would you take that deal? Because what Shyne did next shocked everyone. But here's where it gets really interesting. The prosecution didn't just want Shyne to testify about the 1999 shooting. They wanted everything. Every past interaction. Every past event. Every time Diddy had used his power to make problems disappear. And Shyne? He had been watching. He had been taking notes. He had been waiting for this exact moment for over 2 decades. The man who walked into that federal courthouse wasn't just a witness. He was a guided missile aimed directly at the heart of Sean Combs' empire. What do you think? Was this justice finally being served, or was this revenge dressed up as testimony? When Shyne was reportedly there to address his past connection to the situation, I don't think anyone in that courtroom was prepared for what happened next. This wasn't just testimony. This was 25 years of suppressed rage, crystallized into surgical precision. Every question the prosecution asked, Shyne answered with devastating clarity. Names. Dates. Amounts. Details that only someone who had been in Diddy's inner circle could know. But the real bombshell came when Shyne's lawyer presented his perspective on the court record related to the 1999 event. I've seen court transcripts, and let me tell you, the atmosphere in that room was electric. Diddy's lawyers were scrambling. His entire defense strategy was crumbling in real time. Because that account didn't just implicate Diddy in the 1999 shooting. It laid out a pattern. A system. A way of operating that showed this wasn't a one-time thing. This was how Sean Combs had been handling problems for years. And the most devastating part? Shyne had lived through it all while he was still loyal. While he still believed Diddy would look out for him. While he still thought his silence meant something. The courtroom was dead silent as the prosecutor referenced details from the public record related to the case. Even the judge looked stunned. But Diddy? Diddy just stared at Shyne like he was seeing a ghost. Because in a way, he was. Comment below, do you think Diddy knew this day would come? But here's what really got to me, watching this unfold. Shyne wasn't angry on the stand. He wasn't shouting or pointing fingers or trying to embarrass Diddy. He was calm. Methodical. Almost sad. This wasn't a man seeking revenge. This was a man finally telling the truth he'd been carrying for 25 years. And the weight of that truth, it was crushing everyone in that room. The prosecution asked him directly, why now? Why speak up after all these years? And Shyne's answer, man, it gave me chills. Because I realized that my silence wasn't protecting anyone. It was just enabling the same system that destroyed my life to destroy others. Think about that. After everything Diddy put him through, Shyne wasn't doing this for money. He wasn't doing it for fame. He was doing it because he finally understood that staying quiet was just as harmful as the original crime. What's your take? Was Shyne a hero or a snitch? Drop your thoughts below. By the time Shyne finished his testimony, the entire trajectory of the case had shifted. What started as a federal investigation into recent alleged crimes had become a window into decades of systematic abuse of power. And the most beautiful part? Diddy couldn't touch him. The truth, now public, meant that no matter what Shyne admitted to, no matter what role he revealed he'd played, he was legally protected from further prosecution regarding the 1999 incident. For the first time in 25 years, Moses Barrow was truly free. But freedom came with a price. As Shyne walked out of that courthouse, he wasn't just walking away from Diddy's shadow. He was walking away from a version of himself that had been defined by loyalty to someone who never deserved it. The media was calling it the testimony of the century. Legal experts were saying it was the most damaging witness testimony they'd ever seen in a federal case. But for Shyne, it was something much simpler. It was finally telling the truth. And Diddy? The man who had built an empire on image and power and the ability to make problems disappear? He was finally facing a problem he couldn't buy his way out of. A problem he couldn't intimidate into silence. A problem he had created himself 25 years ago when he decided that Moses Barrow's life was disposable. The irony is beautiful, isn't it? The young man Diddy threw away to save himself had become the key witness in his own destruction. Drop a comment. Do you think this was karma or just coincidence? So here's the question that's been keeping me up at night. Was this justice, or was this just survival? Did Shyne simply speak his truth, or did he finally reclaim it by speaking truth to power? Because here's the thing, truth doesn't erase the past. It doesn't give Shyne back those 10 years in prison. It doesn't restore the career that was destroyed. It doesn't heal the trauma of being betrayed by someone he trusted. But it does something else. Something maybe more important. It gives his suffering meaning. Every day Shyne spent in that cell, every night he wondered why someone he looked up to had abandoned him, every moment he questioned whether loyalty was just another word for stupidity. All of that led to this moment. This testimony. This truth. And Diddy? The man who thought he was untouchable? He's learning that the people you step on while climbing to the top have a way of being there when you fall. This story isn't over. Not by a long shot. The trial is still ongoing. There are more witnesses to come. More secrets to be revealed. But this moment, this testimony from the man who was supposed to stay buried, this changes everything. So I want to know what you think. Drop a comment below. Was Shyne right to break his silence after all these years? Was this testimony an act of courage or an act of revenge? And do you think Diddy saw this coming? Hit that like button if this story blew your mind like it blew mine. Subscribe for more deep dives into the cases that are reshaping hip-hop culture. And ring that notification bell because trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next in this saga. Because if there's one thing I've learned covering this case, it's that when someone like Sean Combs falls, they don't fall alone. And the people who are about to get pulled down with him? They probably never saw Moses Barrow coming. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.